This episode may contain adult themes and explicit language. Listener discretion is advised.
Sorry.
What's the trick in making my love stick? What's the trick?
Hello, and welcome to the Film Critic and the Common Man podcast. Other film podcasts might use a white noise machine to sleep. We only sleep to the sound of a metronome. Every episode, we discuss a film from the perspective of a film critic and the perspective of a common man. We may not agree, but it certainly won't be boring. I'm your co-host, Ben Miller. I write about films for my own site, Ice Cream for Freaks, and a member of the North Texas Film Critics Association, as well as the International Film Society Critics. You can hear me guest on other pods as the David Thewlis of podcasting. I'm joined by my brother and the first man through that door because he loves it so much. Jake Miller, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, I'm doing all right.
This is a lot to get into.
I would smash that metronome as well.
I mean, it's just that's probably the most that's one of the most soothing parts of the movie is just like him throwing that metronome across the room. Just like yes. I mean, I don't know why I ever started to begin with, but yeah. If you haven't guys by what we're talking about today's movie, it's going to be a bit of a bummer, but there's going to be a lot to talk about. It is not from 1995, the film Se7en, directed by David Fincher, written by Andrew Kevin Walker, starring Brad Pitt, Morgan Freeman, Gwyneth Paltrow, and Kevin Spacey, co-starring Arlie Ermy, Richard Roundtree, John C. McGinley, Reggie Cathy. A lot of single letter names there. Arlie, John C, Reggie, whatever. Something I noticed. Opened on September 22nd, 1995. For a movie that it was such a bummer, this movie made so much money. $100.1 million domestic, $227.2 international, $327 million on a $33 million budget. Very successful.
Good profit margin.
Very, very much so. Only nominated for one Oscar, a big kind of a surprise snub for across the board. One Oscar for film editing, a very, very good nomination. Lost to Apollo 13. Interesting Rotten Tomatoes spread, 82% critics. A lot lower than I was expecting.
I don't get that.
I don't really get it either. But 95% audience. It is ranked number 17 on IMDb for the top 250 films all time. So it's very much one of those movies that are like, man, this is, people really love it. I think a lot of it has to do with like, man, it is just such a downer movie. There's not a whole lot of happiness in it.
No, but I mean, it's a serial killer movie.
Yeah.
What do you want?
And it spawned 1,000 imitators. Essentially, this is
Saw.
the movie. All the Saw movies,
Complete ripoff.
exactly. All the kind of like variations on it. There's Se7en did probably more harm for future movies than it did good. Like I love Se7en. It's one of my top 10 movies ever, personally. But I mean,
Really?
yes, it is. I love it so much. That's why I'm so. It's such a bummer. Jake, speaking of, there's a lot of good to get into despite it being a little bit of a downer. Can you give us a quick plot summary of the film Se7en?
Yeah. So Brad Pitt plays kind of a young hotshot detective, up and coming guy. I mean, he's already kind of proven himself, but probably thinks he's hotter shit than he really is. He's married to, he's a relatively young guy, married to a young wife played by Gwyneth Paltrow. And so he's recently, he requested an assignment in a rough part of town, basically.
Yeah.
A tough district. He's a homicide detective. And he's paired up with Morgan Freeman, for his character. And so basically Morgan Freeman is much more the experienced experienced voice of reason,
Yes.
the wise, old guy that's like, slow down, hang on.
Yeah, much more patient. Yes.
Yeah, and Brad Pitt's character is all gung ho. Let's go beat the streets.
Yeah.
All that. And Morgan Freeman's like, nah, we need to slow down, investigate, read this, read that. Well, anyways, so they're assigned together for a serial killer, basically a series of killings.
Yes.
In their area, committed by a guy with obviously like a biblical motive. I mean, there's also references to Canterbury Tales and Dante's Inferno.
Mm-hmm. Divine Comedy. Lot of literature references in this film.
Yeah. So basically, this serial killer is killing someone that is the epitome of each deadly sin.
Yep.
Basically, so there's pride, greed, wrath, envy, lust, gluttony, sloth. So, for instance, gluttony. There's an obese person, and he basically forces them to eat themselves to death. Basically, like pride. I think it was a model.
Yeah, it was a model, had a picture of herself over her bed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he super glued like prescription pills in one, and then a phone in the other, and then disfigured her face terribly. And so basically she had to choose between, she can take the pills in her own life, or she can call for help and save her life.
Yeah.
And as opposed to being permanently disfigured, she ends her own life.
Yeah.
And so they go through a series of these murders. They're all motivated off the 7 deadly sins, thus obviously the title.
Yes.
And so Kevin Spacey plays the serial killer.
Just named John Doe. Never given any more information than that.
No, and luckily, the good thing about Kevin Spacey is he's never done anything actually creepy. This was only an act. He's never done anything actually wrong.
I'll tell you what, 20 plus years after the movie, you're like, boy, he really fit this thing like a glove, huh?
You know what I actually thought of was whenever we covered The Departed.
Oh yeah.
And I said something about Mark Wahlberg playing asshole from South Boston. I was like, that's not an act. That's what he is.
Yeah.
And so creepy weirdo.
Turns
he
out
nails it.
Nails it. Yeah. I mean, but he doesn't show it. Like Kevin Spacey first shows up, I think, an hour and a half into the movie. 30 minutes
really
ago is the first time he shows up. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a main character, and he's obviously the antagonist throughout it. But yeah, he has a late appearance and a limited appearance.
Yes.
So that, basically, the way the movie goes is there's this constant conflict between Brad Pitt wanting to be a gung-ho hero, and Morgan Freeman being the experienced detective. They're looking into these serial killings, and ends up Kevin Spacey playing John Doe, the serial killer, ends up making Brad Pitt play a part.
Yep.
By actually murdering his wife, who's pregnant.
Yep.
Unknown to him at the time, but murders
Unfortunately,
his wife, decapitates her, and then puts it in a box and has it delivered to him in the final scene, in which he's confessing everything to Brad Pitt, and he tells Brad Pitt that the last two deadly sins are basically he envies Brad Pitt and his life, his relationship to his wife. So he says, that's my sin, and the final sin is revealed with wrath.
Please shoot me.
Brad Pitt caps him, effectively ends, factually ends Kevin Spacey's character's life.
Yep.
And then effectively ends his own.
Yeah.
You know, whether he's in a mental hospital or is convicted or his career's over. His life as he knows it is over.
Yeah.
And Morgan Freeman does a good job of, like I said, being that voice of wisdom and reason. And in this movie, like, he's a week away from retirement. Basically, at the end of the movie, he's like,
am I going to retire? I don't know. Maybe not. There's so much to get into. Specifically, you know, as bleak as this film is, there's a lot of the best part about it is probably the relationship between Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman. The kind of, they don't necessarily like, okay, we're in love with each other or anything like that. We're best buddies. That relationship never really gets to that point. It's more of a, okay, we're in no way the same. Let's complement each other in this relationship.
Old versus new.
Yeah, old versus new.
Old school, new school.
So it's we discussed this during our Departed episode. It has been established you were once a police officer.
I was.
There is a lot about this movie when how it relates to cops in a lot of different facets. Specifically, the relationships like between detectives and beat cops, patrolmen, and SWAT guys, and just kind of the different attitudes between that. Was that really, did you see a lot of that? Like, a lot of that was like, man, they're almost like, they're not even the same kind of cops almost.
Yes, there are stark differences, you know, that exist. But I mean, in my experience, and I can only speak to, you know, my experience with the agency that I worked for. But, it wasn't that contentious. I was a patrol officer for 10 years. During that time, I was also an alternate for the crime scene investigation unit. So I did that as well. And then I was a detective in the sex crimes unit for 3 years. During that time, I've seen the different levels going from beat cop to presenting this to a district attorney, getting warrants signed by judges. And something, like I said, it at least in my experience, there was never that much contention between detectives and patrol, or SWAT and detectives.
Okay.
The best way I can sum it up is whenever you've got a shit sandwich, you go take your bite, but you bring a lot of friends to help you eat this shit sandwich.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, so basically patrol takes their bite. They're usually the first responders, the ones that, you know, get the call. And detectives have to take their bite. And, you know, if you have a situation where you got to, you know, you have an arrest warrant or a search warrant that needs to be executed, you have a tactical situation you have to deal with, call in SWAT, time for y'all to take a bite out of this shit sandwich. And then basically the detective eats up the last bits.
Yeah, that makes,
presents a case or whatever.
This feels very true as far as like the kind of minutia of how you have to build a case. It's not as simple as we caught the guy and that's that. Morgan Freeman has a speech specifically. He's sitting next to Brad Pitt and they're waiting for fingerprints. And he says, you know, we just get mountains and mountains of evidence. Even the most promising clues generally just lead to other clues on the off chance they might ever be used in court. And it's just, and Brad Pitt's all antsy because he's like, why aren't we out there doing stuff? Was like, this is the job. This is what you do. You kind of have to wait around a lot. And there's a lot of that. And even right at the beginning, when they first meet, at the gluttony murder scene. Brad Pitt, the style is not working with what Freeman is expecting. So Freeman's like, hey, why don't you go outside and, canvass the neighbors and all this kind of stuff. And then later Brad Pitt goes, no. I'm a detective now. I'm past that point. I put in my time and done that. Like, I don't know how, is that kind of where you stop? You're like, no, everybody kind of has to always put their part.
Yeah, I mean, that's maybe more of a personal thing. It's
sure.
Egos. I mean, there was, I never felt like, well, that's below me, and make patrol do it, or
I know what you
this
mean.
or that. But at the same time, there is a hierarchy.
Sure.
There, where the grunt work generally gets done by the grunts.
That makes sense.
Like I said, everyone needs to take their bite out of the shit sandwich. And so it's just when do I need to take my bites and where do I need a bite?
Yeah, it's going to taste bad. It doesn't matter where it is. It's such a great analogy for how the
embrace the suck.
Yes, it's gonna be bad. Figure it out. So I want to talk about Morgan Freeman for a second because going into this movie, you're like, man, Morgan Freeman, like he was definitely one of those late starters as far as actors are concerned. His first film credit was in a movie called The Pawnbroker from 1964, a notable movie, the first movie to ever feature breasts in film.
Yummy.
1964. But he didn't really break through with any sort of acclaim until 1987. He got an Oscar nomination for playing a pimp in a movie called Street Smart, starring him and Christopher Reeve. It's a really interesting movie. Got an Oscar nomination for that. But I want to talk about this run specifically.
That was a paralyzing performance. Sorry.
No, you walked right into it. I walked into it. I mean, I hang the curveball, you hit it out. I get it. Makes sense. No, the run.
Kevin Spacey's a pervert. Oh.
Yeah. Oh, no, hold on your controversy.
Okay.
So
I don't want to address any elephants.
So this is the run that Morgan Freeman went on from 1989 to 1998. In 1989, he has three movies: Lean on Me, where he's the principal of a inner city school, probably his star-making role. And then he was in Driving Miss Daisy and Glory, all in the same year. Got an Oscar nomination for Driving Miss Daisy. He's better in Glory. Glory's phenomenal if you haven't seen it.
I have.
Yeah, great movie. Yeah. The next year, Ken Burns made a documentary about the Civil War. He voiced Frederick Douglass, beginning his long voiceover career. 1991, a America Plus favorite, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves.
Fuck yeah, I love that movie.
It's another terrible movie that I watch a lot.
Hey, it's the cheeseburger at the fair, my man.
Cheeseburger at the fair. I agree. It's a cheeseburger movie if there ever was one. In 1992, began his long and fruitful career with Clint Eastwood in Unforgiven as Ned Logan. One of my favorite performances that never gets any acclaim from him. He directed his first ever movie in 1993, a movie called Bofa that I've never heard of. Starred Danny Glover. It was a box office bomb. But was fairly critically acclaimed. 1994, Shawshank Redemption, obviously.
I've never heard of it.
1995, unfortunately, the second most watched movie of the pandemic, Outbreak.
Yeah.
Another Kevin Spacey joint, by the way. Also the same year, Seven. And then kind of fell backwards a little bit in 1996, had a box office bomb with him and Keanu Reeves called Chain Reaction. Followed that up with 1997 with Amistad and Kiss the Girls. And then in 1998 played the president in Deep Impact. That's a lot of work. That's a lot of work, and it's a lot of big stuff.
I'm shocked that something with Keanu Reeves didn't.
So
how did that not work?
Well, it's I've read some Chain Reaction is one of those movies that for some reason I've read way too much behind the scenes stuff, and it was a disaster ready to happen, and Keanu Reeves and Morgan Freeman were essentially signed on. They're like, this is gonna suck, but oh well, let's keep going with it.
Getting paid.
Get paid. And these days I wonder if he has financial issues, because he does 4 movies a year, almost like clockwork at this point. It might just be small things, but he's in a lot of stuff these days.
He must have child support or something.
Well, whatever it is. But anyway, so I mean, that run is one of those things, and it's not necessarily like, you don't think of him as like a movie star necessarily, but I mean, I think this is his best performance. I think in Seven, he's better than he is in Shawshank Redemption. As much as I love him in Shawshank Redemption, I think there's more complexity to it in this one, and it doesn't work without what he brings.
Yeah, I think he has to stand in contrast to Brad Pitt's character.
Yeah.
I mean, his character in Shawshank, he does the same thing. But I don't know. Yeah, it is a much more complex role.
Yeah,
guess,
and so, and I was reading a little bit about this just kind of in prep. I was like, oh, I was looking. I saw the 82% on Critics, and I'm like, who's not on board with this?
Yeah,
and
I didn't get that.
A lot of people don't think Brad Pitt's good in this movie. I think he's perfect for what the movie needs. Like, he's really
cocky, young, good looking, high energy.
Yeah. And even and I was thinking about it, the more if you go through the movie, and Morgan Freeman's character is so good as a detective, it makes Brad Pitt looks that much worse. But the one time you're like, okay, he's in his element, is whenever he's chasing after Doe. And he is gung-ho Superman. He is jumping across cars. This is what he signed up for. He is chasing after the guy. He's going to stop them, and he's going to put an end to this. It's action, 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 as opposed to the necessary, boring,
the grueling
banality of detective work. Yeah.
You got to write your report. You need to read this. You need to research. Yeah. The office work. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's half the time we see Morgan Freeman before these murders start. He's in his office writing stuff. I can't imagine. And this is, pre 2000, so it's all by hand, all paper, or a little bit of typewriting. I mean, you have talked about it all the time. Half of police work is the minutia of writing reports.
Yeah, paperwork is so big of a part. I mean, just documentation, covering your ass, and proving what you did or didn't do, or whatever. I mean, during my time in detectives, especially during winter specifically, I remember there was times where you have days where you're out beating the streets, knocking on doors, interviewing people, all that, and then it would be followed by days of sitting in front of a computer screen and typing.
Yeah.
And specifically, I mentioned winter because I remember there were times where I'd get to work whenever it was dark. Our office had no windows. We were in the middle of a big concrete building. Yeah. And I spent all day in front of a computer typing. And by the time I left in the evening, it was dark again.
You just never saw daylight. Yeah.
I never saw daylight. And I mean, it's grueling work, really. Sure. I mean, the sexiness or the glamour or that shine wears off real fucking quick.
Yeah,
I can guarantee that.
I mean, you get and kind of the way this movie is kind of set up, it's almost the exact same thing. It's you have that one chase. Besides that, there's no real action in the movie. It's all following leads, going to libraries, finding all this kind of stuff, and the work, and that's why Morgan Freeman is such a good cop in this movie, is because he has the patience to put in all that time. Do you have big Gwyneth Paltrow feelings as an actress?
I like her vagina scented candles.
I knew it was coming. I didn't even have to bring it up. I love
How
it.
do I not address that?
It's a
thing.
She is definitely a person who feels like her persona has outweighed her actual reality of life. I don't know if she actually is that person, that unaware of things that are going on in the world, but I mean, or is it something like
goddamn flies are gonna
but I mean, so this movie specifically, like, she's very timid, she's very sweet, she's very like no judgment, no doesn't want to upset Brad Pitt's character, very on the sidelines, nothing to disturb how hard he's working,
right.
and it's
a supporting person. I mean, relatively small role, but also an integral role.
Yes. And you can kind of feel the chemistry between the two, between Paltrow and Pitt, for good reason. They were dating at the time. I mean, it makes sense. But I mean, without her there, obviously, she's more of a mechanism, but she's a sweet mechanism. And that scene with her and Freeman talking about her being pregnant is one of the better scenes in the film, in a film filled with great scenes.
Yeah. That's something that really connected with me. I mean, after a 13-year law enforcement career, most of which my wife was with me for.
Yeah.
Dude, I can't tell you how bad it sucks. Getting called out in the middle of the night.
Sure.
And what a spouse or a supporting family member has to go through and sacrifice themselves.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it sucks, but there's some flies in here.
It's okay.
But I mean, how much they have to put up with. I mean, I remember there was one time I got called out and my wife was making meatloaf dinner, mashed potatoes, everything. This is going to be a great dinner for you. And as soon as it's done, ring. And I said, I got to go. And that was it. And I think she was pregnant at the time. She broke down in tears. And I mean, I don't know how many nights of, it's 2:00 in the morning, it's 3:00 in the morning.
Yeah.
Whenever it's bad weather, it's good weather, it doesn't fucking matter.
Yeah.
Because it's the type of job that you can't say. For instance, whenever I was a detective, I was on pre-scheduled vacation around Christmas time, between Christmas and New Year's. Pre-scheduled, approved, and I'm off, and I get a call, and basically it was, hey, vacation over.
Yeah.
You need to go extradite this guy, bring him back, and interrogate him, and go to work.
Yeah.
And you can't say, oh, well, actually, I'm tired, or I have vacation scheduled, or anything. They're like, no, there's a serial rapist you need to go get.
And it's not like they called you. It's not like they called you first. It's like they probably went through the channels of like, okay, this guy's the person you call. He's doing something else. And it's actually at one point, at the beginning of the film, whenever the gluttony, like Freeman recognizes, like, this can't be my last case. He's like, give it to somebody else. And he's like, I don't have anybody else to give this to. I can't just, it's not, you don't pick and choose. This is what you have. This is what you do. So, okay.
Yeah. That is exactly, that specific part reminded me of whenever I first promoted and got assigned to detectives in this sex crime unit, which is it's a tough gig.
Sure.
Let me just put it that way.
I agree.
But whenever I showed up for my assignment first day in detectives, and my lieutenant, my boss over that unit, says, well, you're assigned to this unit, so you got that going for you. And it was completely facetious. He was basically
of course. He's
well,
like, I know you don't
you
want
landed a shit spot, so there you go.
Here's your bite. It's going to
Good
be
luck.
Your bite of the sandwich is going to be much bigger than everybody else's. I'm sorry.
Exactly. And he was like, you're going to have to fucking deal with it.
So of the seven murders in this film, I'm obviously not saying it's cool, but you know what I mean by it. They're kind of like you said. You compared them to Saw. They have a certain flair to them. Is there one that stands out?
Justice, I suppose.
Not even justice. I mean, but like whenever you watch the film and you're like, okay, that's like the Pride one for me is the one where the Pride kill. I was like, that is the one that I don't even feel bad. Like, yes, you don't want to cut a woman's face off and all that kind of stuff. And it's almost impressive at this point. And Morgan Freeman mentions that whenever they're talking about the gluttony victim, and it's like there were 2 receipts. That means he was feeding them, went back to the store and got more food. It's like it's almost, man, that's a lot of effort to get it in there. Speaking of some of those, one of my hallmarks of an exceptional movie is how much I like the small little performances around the outskirts, and there's a lot of that. Our man Arlie Ermey, former gunny himself, as the police chief, has one of my favorite laughs of the movie, where he's out in the pit and phone rings and he says, "This isn't even my desk," and slams it down. And Richard Roundtree, Shaft, as I think he's the district attorney, or he's in the room whenever they have John Doe. I really like him. He's not in the movie much. John C. McGinley from Scrubs, Dr. Cox from Scrubs as California.
He's the SWAT commander.
SWAT guy, California, stay away from here. And then a couple others I wanted to point out, specifically my man Leland Orser, who I will always remember specifically for this movie and Saving Private Ryan. He's in the 2 movies and has the same scene.
Wait.
Yep. Go ahead.
He's the glider pilot in Saving Private Ryan.
Yes, the FUBAR guy. Yep, that's him.
Yep.
Yes. And essentially, like, that's what Leland Orser does. He pops up in movies for 5 minutes. You're like, that scene and that guy was great. And I've never seen. He does a great job, and you never see him again. And this one, man, he purposely hyperventilated himself. And was, the gun was in my throat. Man, it's so intense.
Pretty convincing.
Very convincing.
It looks like a panic attack.
And I really like that scene in general, especially how it's framed, how Morgan Freeman is talking to Leland Orser, and the much more reserved guy talking to a guy who does not need to be high strung.
Riled up.
And on the flip side, Brad Pitt also being very calm, very, very very understanding of things, talking to Michael Massey, who is the guy, he runs the Lust parlor. And he's like, you don't see anything? It's like, guys have whole packages coming in there. It's like the two, kind of the dichotomy between the two. And at the end, they're like, well, we're no closer on this thing. Like, this sucks. And I know in all your interrogations, the film, this is probably a more realistic aspect of interrogation as opposed to the you admit it, you did it, and turn the lights on and stuff like that. It's much more of a conversation than it is anything else, correct?
For the most part, but I mean, well, I mean, I would say it's much more Morgan Freeman's character
Yeah.
Than Brad Pitt's, as far as trying to go in. I mean, I guess a good way to put it is the good cop, bad cop thing.
That's a good way.
That you catch more flies with honey,
Sure,
you know, and
sure.
so really like the bad cop thing doesn't really work in the modern era.
That makes sense.
And so you have to learn how to just talk to people, even if they're despicable.
Sure.
And every ounce of you
Just
inside
does not want to be in that
just
room. Just wants
to
to
strangle them.
Yeah. I know. I get it. Yeah.
But you got to act like their best friend.
Yeah.
And you get there.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Sometimes
you don't.
Yeah, I get it. So, okay, so a lot of I've been reading a lot about this movie, and the thing about it is, the thing that blows me away is there are dozens and dozens of people who are like, "Hey, what was in the box at the end of the movie?" I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" Like, it's like
you didn't figure it out.
It's just like it took years for them to figure out what was in the box. I'm like, pretty obvious what was in the box at the end of the movie.
That's a old GP head.
The actual gigantic mystery of this movie: where does this city exist? What city is this?
I don't know.
Because it is
not a clue.
It is a large place, constantly raining, filled with crime, an hour from the desert and mountains. It makes no sense. Like, logistically, like, because you're like, oh, it's New York. And then all of a sudden at the end of the movie, they're in the desert. And you're like, well, that's not it. But it's not really California. Like
Albuquerque, maybe?
I mean, I have a feeling Albuquerque, well, the SWAT teams, helicopters and Albuquerque and all that kind of stuff. But
I like how subtle their surveillance is. It's a big black helicopter with white police, and they're like hovering low, and they're like, okay, we've got them inside. I'm like, subtle.
So yeah, it's a cool device as far as to keep an idea of setting. But I agree, as far as actual, like, oh, it's just like, oh, you're supposed to be alone and absolutely alone, nobody else there except that helicopter. What a coincidence. He's like, they traffic. You know, what are you gonna do?
Like, I don't know who that is.
Okay. I want to get into. I'll go ahead and start with this week's poll for a dumbass. Every week I talk to Jake about a filmography of a director or an actor or sometimes a film year, and he just kind of goes through and tells me whether he's seen it or not and how prevalent it is to the common man. For this week, we are doing one of my favorite film directors, the director of this movie, Mr. David Fincher. David Fincher has not done a whole lot of movies, but when he does one, it is always something. It's always something memorable for one reason or another. He made his film he made a lot of he did a lot of music videos. He made his hay as music video directors, specifically Madonna's Vogue video, director of that. Did a lot of stuff with Madonna, in essentially that's kind of what made him.
Please tell me he did that, Rick. What's that called?
Rick Astley, Never Gonna Give You Up.
Please tell me he did that.
I don't think he did. He has a little higher mind than that. I'd like to think. So he did. Let's see. He did some We Don't Have to Take Our Clothes Off by Jermaine Stewart. He wrote that video. Did some Eddie Money, Loverboy, a lot of a couple Sting stuff.
How about that White Snake video?
Straight Up by Paula Abdul. Did that.
Oh, yeah.
Did that video. A lot of Paula Abdul. Express Yourself by Madonna. Some Don Henley. Janie's Got a Gun by Aerosmith.
That's a good one.
The Freedom by George Michael. And then as he went on, he still occasionally will throw other stuff in there. Did the Wallflowers, Nine Inch Nails, stuff like that. So His actual film debut was in Alien.
Let me interrupt you.
Go ahead.
Just fun fact,
Yes.
the bass player for Nine Inch Nails actually lived 2 doors down from us whenever we lived overseas.
Really?
So, yep.
How did we not know that? How did I not remember this?
I knew it.
Nine Inch Nails plays a big part in this movie, actually, because, well, there's a couple things. One is that the opening scene is to a remix of the song "Closer" by Nine Inch Nails. It's it's remixed, and brought the director from that video in to consult in the opening scene. And then in his later movies, David Fincher actually got Trent Reznor, the lead singer of Nine Inch Nails, to do the music for a lot of his movies. So Nine Inch Nails plays a big part in a lot of this movie.
Look up the bass player. His parents were like
parents
3 doors down.
I can never remember these things for some reason. But David Fincher made his debut in 1992, the third film in the Alien franchise, called Alien 3.
It's creative.
Yes. So Alien 3, that was the one with bald Sigourney Weaver.
Okay.
Do you remember that? Do you remember it? I don't know if it's not a very good movie.
The thing with Alien is kind of one of those movies that I get them mixed up.
Yeah. I mean,
I can't remember which one was that 1, 2.
Yeah,
3?
and I kind of do the same thing. It's like, okay, well, the first one is the old one with John Hurt, and the burst out of his chest. The second one is the action movie with all the Marines. Third one, Sigourney Weaver's bald. Fourth one, we don't need to talk about because it's not very good. Leland Orser in Alien Resurrection, by the way.
Really?
Yeah. So he made his debut with Alien 3. It was a disaster. It did not make good money. He hated the experience. He wanted to quit, and then he got sent the script for 7, and it kept him going. So Alien 3 and then 7. 1997's The Game with Michael Douglas. Michael Douglas is a executive, and his brother Sean Penn gives him a game for his birthday, and it essentially seems like it's ruining his life and destroying everything about him. It's a really interesting movie. If you ever get the chance, it's not bad.
I got nothing.
And then about 1999's Fight Club.
Yeah.
So
It's
that's
a solid flick.
solid flick.
It's weird, but
It's there's a lot of it's grown into a thing where a lot of people who shouldn't be liking it like it a little too much. 2002, Panic Room. A movie I remember watching with you, I believe.
yeah, I've seen it, but
Dwight Yoakam as the bad guy.
yeah.
How
right.
about 2000?
It's okay.
How about 2007 cop film extraordinaire Zodiac? Oh, exceptional movie.
Is it?
It's a 3-hour opus, essentially tracing all the investigation of and all the chaos from the Zodiac crimes. It's really, really good. It's every character actor in the world: Jake Gyllenhaal, Robert Downey Jr., Mark Ruffalo, Anthony Edwards, bunch of people in it. Really exceptional. I don't know if it's his best. I think Seven's his best movie. But how about 2008's Curious Case of Benjamin Button?
I know the premise of it, but I've never seen it.
Yeah. It's probably his most. He makes some really dark, out there stuff. It's probably the lightest one he makes. How about 2010's The Social Network?
No.
You've never seen The Social Network? About the making of Facebook?
I don't think so. Oh, yeah. The Zuckerberg
Yes,
deal?
the Zuckerberg
Yeah.
movie. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Where he's
Yeah.
in college.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. I've seen it.
Yeah, it's exceptional, and it's almost like Zodiac. It's just like, well, what are we going to track? We're going to track the history of Facebook for the first couple of years and out of the reality of that, and made Andrew Garfield a star. Had that shining moment where Armie Hammer was going to be a star until another guy who went kind of sideways. How about The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo?
Never seen.
That is a super dark movie. Really cool if you like Scandinavia. It's set in Sweden the whole time. Really well done. A little bit of a dark. Speaking of dark, how about Gone Girl?
Yes.
Yes. I think Jessica Chastain said it was one of her favorite romantic comedies. And then in 2020, his most recent film, Mank, about Joseph Mankiewicz, the guy who wrote Citizen Kane. It's on Netflix. It's fine. It's okay. Stars Gary Oldman. That really surprised me. I was really expecting you would be more in line with his kind of films. So Seven, Fight Club, Panic Room, Social Network, and Gone Girl. Like, he doesn't really made like a small independent thing. All his movies are very kind of pretty mainstream. His next movie's called The Killer with Michael Fassbender. It's based on a comic. It's coming out next year. So that's surprising. I'm surprised with it that you didn't have the David Fincher knowledge that I thought. All right, buddy, you got anything for me today?
Well, Ben.
Yes.
You're in the hot box.
I'm in the hot box. The hot box is a weekly thing where Jake, instead of me kind of steering the conversation, Jake puts me into the interrogation room, also known as the hot box, and starts peppering me with questions. Jake, whenever you're ready.
All right. Well, exactly. Whenever I'm ready. You're in the hot box, dude. Who do you think's running the show here?
I'm trying to steer the conversation. No, I know.
Well,
okay. All you, buddy.
Don't you get an attitude with me? All right. So, normally I do more of an interrogation of Ben.
Okay.
But this week I thought I'd mix it up and do more of a trivia.
Ooh, I like it.
Type of situation.
I like it. I'm on board with this.
Yeah. So I was a criminal justice major in college, and obviously I was a cop. Mm-hmm. And so this week we're gonna do a serial killer trivia.
Ooh, I'm on board with this.
So, well, it doesn't matter. You're in the hot box. You're not in control.
It's true. It's very true.
You're not free to leave.
I know.
Right now.
I'm
okay. You're free to leave when I tell you you're free to leave.
Yes, sir.
Exactly. Okay. So the way this is gonna work, I am gonna lay out several facts about the serial killer in question.
Okay.
Obviously, this film deals with a serial killer, cops, the investigation, all that. Okay, so I'm going to lay out several facts about the serial killer or their cases, their victims, whatever circumstances surround that, and then you name the serial killer.
Okay, I like this.
As soon as you can.
Okay.
Okay, so basically buzz in and say, I got it.
Gotcha.
Okay, and I'll give you a hint. These are all American serial killers.
Okay.
Within the last 50, 60 years.
Okay. So it's not like
modern,
not like ancient guys who poisoned everybody with arsenic. Okay, I gotcha. Okay.
Okay, number one. This individual nickname was Milwaukee Monster. Victims include 17 men or boys.
Okay.
His crime streak ran from 1978 until 1991.
Okay. Is that Jeffrey Dahmer?
That is.
Okay.
Jeffrey Dahmer.
I only remember Jeffrey Dahmer mostly because he was around when we were around. Like as kids, the trial was on. So I remember, it was
cannibalistic,
all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You know, killed in prison. I remember him being killed in prison when we were kids, like that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, he was beaten to death by his cellmate.
Yep.
In prison.
He said he smiled weird at him. He said there's a level of evil in his smile that he didn't like, and he beat the hell out of him until he died.
Yeah. Fun little fact: he worked at a candy factory in Milwaukee.
Oh, how lovely.
Yeah. He also drilled holes in his victims' skulls and put acid in there and tried to make them into zombies.
At one point, one of his victims escaped, ran to police officers on the sidewalk, and he chased after him. And the I believe he had acid in his ears, so he was kind of messed up. And the police officers are like, "Oh, Mr. Dahmer, is he with you?" He goes, "Yep." It's like, "Okay, see ya."
Yeah, it's my boyfriend. He's having a rough night. I'll take him home.
Yep.
Okie dokie.
And he killed him. Yep.
He did.
Good times.
Yeah.
Good times.
Yeah. Okay. Number 2.
Yes.
All right. This individual had a pretty short crime spree span.
Okay.
It was 89 to 90.
Okay.
Florida.
Okay.
This individual is sentenced to death for 6 of 7 confirmed murders.
Eileen Wuornos.
Yep.
Yes. Oscar winner.
And you can't be
Sorry.
internet searching. Are you?
I'm not. No. I'm not. I want the integrity of this game to be maintained. No. It's an Oscar winner, man. It's hard for me not to know Eileen Wuornos. Like, it's almost unfair how ugly they made Charlize Theron in that movie. Almost.
It is.
I mean, she is.
That was. It's the biggest tragedy, but also like you're like, well done.
Yes, exactly. You're like, ugh.
If you can make that chick ugly, I mean, that's a feat.
I agree. Absolutely. Eileen Wuornos, man, not exactly a fun life from that woman.
No. Only claimed to kill in self-defense.
Yeah,
and
6 times. Yeah.
She had a rough go of it.
Yeah, but
no excuse.
No excuses. That's right.
All right. Number 3.
Okay.
This individual, New York City area, 1976. So I'll set the scene. Believed his neighbor's dog was communicating with him.
Yep. It's the son of Sam. I just don't know. Hold on.
Yep.
It's not Neil.
He was caught by police just from a simple parking violation at a fire hydrant. That's how he got caught.
Horowitz? Oh man, I'm not.
You got the wits right.
Wits. I knew it was a wit something. It's Berkowitz.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
First name?
Larry.
No.
Larry Berkowitz. It sounds right.
No. David Berkowitz. Son of Sam.
Mostly the reason, we watch enough Seinfeld that Berkowitz. I had to think in my head. I knew it wasn't Berkowitz. Like. Van's knocking, rocking, don't come a knocking. That episode of Seinfeld. Spike Lee made almost a Zodiac-like movie about the son of. It's called Summer of Sam, mostly about the atmosphere, not necessarily the killings themselves. Mm-hmm. But Berkowitz.
Yeah, he had a reign of terror.
Yeah. How many did he kill? Not many. His numbers aren't.
I don't think so.
I don't think
he had huge numbers, but I mean, he held the city and
hostage, and and blackouts and heat waves. Yeah.
His neighbor was named Sam.
Oh, really?
The dog was a black Labrador Retriever named Harvey.
Sure. I mean,
how'd you like to own that dog?
Well, there's a son of Sam reference in this movie. At one point, Brad Pitt says like, my dog made me do it, and Jodie Foster made me do it, or so I mean, those kind of references, yeah.
All right. Next one. 20 confirmed victims.
Ooh, okay.
Confessed to 30.
Okay.
They think probably over 36.
Okay.
The crime spree, assaults and murders, span 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 states in the United States. California, Colorado, Florida, Idaho, Oregon, Utah, and Washington.
Okay. This is
He was executed. Well, I just said he.
No,
But he was
it's
executed in '89.
it's oh, I'm blanking. It's Zac Efron,
Yep.
but it's
I just watched that movie last night.
It's a
Extremely wicked, shockingly evil, and vile.
vile. Yes, that's what the one of the prosecutors said
It's
about
good.
it. I've heard.
No,
good
it
things.
was the judge,
The
yeah.
judge said, oh my goodness.
played by John Malkovich.
Really? Oh, really?
Yeah. Have you
oh.
not seen it?
I haven't actually. It's on Netflix. I know I can.
It's great. We watched it last night while I was trying to research this.
Man. Come on, give it to me. Just say the first name.
His real first name is Theodore.
Okay, so that's Teddy. What am I going wrong here? Ted
Think of
Ted Bundy.
Yeah,
Oh.
I was fixing to say, think of Married with Children.
Yes, Ted Bundy. I almost said Ted Kaczynski. It was like
Yeah, well, different.
I mean,
Yeah,
okay, yeah.
but yeah, that's Ted Bundy.
He focused on young girls, right?
I think his youngest victim was 12.
And he
females.
kept escaping from prison.
Yep, and then represented himself in his final
Yes,
trial.
yes, yes.
He was a law student.
Yep.
Yeah, and actually there's references to him in Silence of the Lambs where he wears a cast and acts
right.
like he's having trouble getting something in his car and then luring women to help him, and then...
That makes sense. Makes sense.
So, don't help disabled people.
Brought to you by this podcast. That's right.
Oh, wait.
All right. I'm disappointed in myself for not knowing Ted Bundy, but go ahead.
You got there.
Yeah, close enough. Yeah.
It's okay then.
Yeah.
Okay. This one, 10 confirmed victims.
Okay.
Ranging across decades.
Okay.
The crimes were committed in Wichita, Kansas, and Park City, Kansas.
Oh, okay.
This person was the president of church council and a Cub Scout leader.
Yep.
Victims include 2 males, 8 females, ranging from 9 years old to 62 years old.
Yeah.
Sentenced to 175 years.
This man is the Kansas City something. I don't actually know the name. It's I'm not sure I know the name, even if I would have told if you. I don't think it's one of the like obviously 10 people is plenty and kind of puts you in the pantheon, but it's not one of those like, oh, a serial killer name. Like, who is it?
Well, in letters he left for the police, he would describe himself by what he would do to his victims, which is bind, torture, kill.
Oh, okay. The BTK killer.
Yes. Who was Dennis L. Rader.
Dennis L. Rader. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. By the way, I'm not sure if you've seen the series Mindhunter. Mindhunter. It's about the formation of the criminal psychology division of the FBI, directed by David Fincher, the director of this movie, and it's based on the true accounts of them interviewing serial killers, and specifically Wayne Kemper and the various other people like that. They
Criminal profiling.
Criminal profiling. Yeah. Yes. Pretty good, solid series. I think it's on Netflix.
All right. I only got one last question for you.
I'm ready.
All right. I tried to identify your sin from the 7 deadly sins.
Okay.
I couldn't pick one out.
Well,
so I'll ask you.
I appreciate that.
Use some introspection. What do you think your sin is out of the 7? Or the one you're most prone to, or
the one I was prone
susceptible to?
Probably like even being as I always want to say sloth, just because I'm like, it's like I want to be lazy. I'd prefer to be lazy, but it's not. It's like that's not actually the case of what I am. I'm super duper busy for some goofy reason. No, good old fashioned envy. Like it's
envy.
It's not even necessarily envy of things. It's more like, hey, we're going on vacation. I'm like, well, I can't go on vacation. I have a job to do and all this kind of stuff. And it's kind of just an excuse for me to get angry. So envy's my go-to. That's the one that's it's not necessarily one where I'm like, oh, this is the, it makes me do things. It's just kind of lets me sit there and stew as opposed to anything else. I'm gonna go on a limb and say yours is wrath.
Bingo.
Yeah, it's nice that we know each other enough.
Yeah. No, like, I mean, whenever we were kids, and I mean, even still now, it's like I would fight at the drop of a hat. Yeah. And Ben was always very conciliatory and diplomatic. Yeah. And anytime there was any conflict with me, well, it's fine.
It's time to go. Let's drop them and go. Like,
let's throw hands, bud.
It's always so funny that we were raised in the same house, because it's almost like same house, same parents. Your idea was to fight. Mine is like, there's got to be a different way for this. Yeah. It's always been the case.
That's not a good idea. Yeah. Well, it's called being smarter.
Hey, whatever.
All right. Well, Ben.
Guess
you're free to go.
Guess I'm free out of the hot box. Speaking of box, Jake thought of a great game for us to play. Again, with a little bit of help from our wives. Inspired by the ending of this movie, it is called What's in the Box. So much like our
What's in the box? What's in the box? What's in the box?
Man, my favorite. It's almost, I've seen enough where it almost makes me laugh. He's so desperate to ask, and then what's in the box? He goes, what's in the fucking box? Like he gets really mad at one point.
Like, okay, what's in the fucking box?
Yeah, he's like, stop, and it's like, actually tell me. So I had contacted Jake's wife, and Jake had contacted my wife, and they have put an item into a box, and we now will try to identify based on this. So I have this little shoebox that I can slide over, and I can feel over, and you have one as well. I know what is in your box, and you know what is in mine, but we don't know what is in ours.
Right.
So this will be stupid, but I mean, if you're listening to this podcast, I apologize. This is more of a visual medium, but we'll try our absolute best to describe what is going on here. All right, so for the sake of this, I will go first, and then you can go following me. So I have my box here. I don't need to look into it, but it is slid open. So I'll be trying to feel it around and see what we got here. So there are parts to it. I'm pretty sure it is a Mr. Potato Head. I am correct. It is a Mr. Potato Head, and they lost an ear. So not bad. Not as terrifying as the head of Gwyneth Paltrow, but you do what you can.
I wanted to make sure you got a head in the box.
I got an actual head in the box. That's a good way to put it. Well,
yeah. And speaking to your wife earlier, I was like, do y'all have a sprinkler head you can put in there, a shower head, a head of lettuce?
I like it.
We discussed the head of broccoli.
I like it. You wanted to keep it the head theme. I like it.
Yeah. And I didn't want to catch a murder case, so I didn't cut someone's head off.
Actually, nobody's
Send it
actual
to
head
you.
is in there. Okay, that's good to know.
Right.
All right, now, Jake, it is up to you to put your hand in your box and decide what it is. Okay, here we go. I don't think it's going to be dangerous. As you reach in, figuring around. Okay.
It's an electric razor.
That's exactly what it is. Very well done. Yes. I was trying to think either like what I wanted to do you're not much of a wine drinker. So I wanted a wine opener because it's just there's a bunch of weird angles to that. But the electric razor, I wanted to know just offhand. They mentioned before they go take dough out at the end of the film, they're shaving to put the microphones on their chest. And they make a joke about workman's comp claims. Did you ever have to make any workman's comp claims for injuries you sustained on the job?
I don't think I ever had to make a comp claim.
But you were injured on occasion.
Yeah. Broke my hand twice.
Yeah.
Hurt it another third time. Had busted noses, busted lips, stuff like that. But I mean, it was pretty good where they give you time off,
Time to take care of it.
An alternate assignment where you could be, office work or whatever while you heal up or whatever.
Okay.
So I never was like out of work where I had to make a claim.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah,
So you've never shaved off. You never shaved off a nipple in the line of duty.
No.
It's good to know. All right, Jake, is there anything else you wanted to add about the film before we sign off here? There's some fun little facts. The library night guard George, played by an actor called Hawthorne James, better known as the bus driver from Speed before Sandra Bullock takes over. The greasy FBI man, played by Mark Boone Jr., better known these days as being a much different looking man. He is in Sons of Anarchy. He spent 8 seasons on Sons of Anarchy. And one other thing I did want to note about the ending. So the writer Andrew Kevin Walker wrote the movie the way it's constructed, and the studio didn't like it because they're like, it's too much of a downer. We want to change it. We changed it to like a chase to save Gwyneth Paltrow at the end. They accidentally sent the wrong draft to David Fincher, who was like, I want to make this movie. I talked to Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman. They're like, we want to make this movie. And the studio's like, we want to change the ending. And all 3 of them said, you change the ending, we quit. All 3 of them were like, this is the absolute ending we wanted.
It's like, Gwyneth's head doesn't get cut off, we're not doing it.
So there is even a third alternative ending where instead of Brad Pitt shooting him, Morgan Freeman shoots him. That
would be interesting if he sacrificed himself
because
on his behalf. He's at the end of his career.
Yes, it's a really
he's single, no kids.
It's a really, really interesting idea. I love the ending. I don't want to change it. But if you're going to change it, that's the way
would be it.
That'd be it.
Yeah.
So, what is your film rating? Was there anything else you wanted to add to it?
I would just say I think something interesting is there's a scene where, excuse me, Morgan Freeman and Brad Pitt are sitting in a bar.
Yes, great scene.
And Morgan Freeman said, this isn't going to have a happy ending.
Yeah. It kind of calls it away.
That sums up the whole movie.
Pretty much. I mean,
it ain't going to have a happy ending.
Exactly. It's like there's no part of this where you're like, hey, I'm going to feel good about this. It's not necessarily it's a downer ending, kind of like we were talking about, like with The Mist and or like even Brokeback Mountain. But Brokeback Mountain's more sad. This is going like this is That's and okay. So, in your professional opinion, what is the ending for Brad Pitt's character? What do you think is the legal conclusion to what happens? Because there's been a lot of circumstances
Right.
where there's the famous one where the dad who his son was molested, and they brought the guy in from the airport, shoots him in the airport, gets a 10-year sentence, but it's suspended. So
Yeah.
I understand there would be a lot of sympathy on his side. But what do you feel is what would have been the outcome if this was real?
Well, his law enforcement career is over.
Obviously, yes.
Yeah, but I would say he'd either, get some type of civil commitment to a mental health institution,
Sure.
or be declared insane, it would be declared a crime of passion.
Yeah, and there's probably not going to be.
And so even if they convicted him, it would.
It's not like there's some district attorney just dying to nail him from all of this. Like, it would be everybody kind of be like, I get it, but.
Yeah, and I mean, what jury members are going to be like? Yeah, throw the book at him.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, okay. This guy sent his wife's head to him.
Yeah, it's just like, oh,
and he killed him. Oh,
cool.
okay.
That sounds fair to me. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
All right. Jake, my film rating for this movie is 5 out of 5. It is.
Okay.
I feel.
Yep.
I think I have it ranked as my 9th favorite movie ever.
Really?
But I mean, it's the best movie in 1995. It's Fincher's best movie. I think it's Morgan Freeman's best performance. It's probably Brad Pitt's top 3 performances. I really like Moneyball, but him and Moneyball and this, a couple other things. But I mean, it's just the perfect Kevin Spacey role, especially with hindsight. Just everything about it. It's such a downer, but it just works for me in every way.
Yeah. No, it's great. I love it. I mean, especially if you're a fan of crime films, serial killers,
thriller noir.
It works. It's a good movie. It's extremely well acted, well written. Yeah, it works. Just like you said. I mean, it just works.
And it's nice to watch the movie be completely, totally dry, just knowing how miserable they all are wet. Like, just adding to the allure of just like constantly rainy, wet, and just the ickiness of it all. Yeah, there's a lot to that, and one of my favorite movies.
It's very visceral.
It's when I said it's one of my favorite movies, my wife goes, "Well, that sounds about right." Like,
it would be something jacked up.
Exactly. That just about does it for this episode of the Film Critic and the Common Man. Thank you so very much for joining us. You can follow me on Twitter at NebIsBen, on Letterboxd at Neb810, on Instagram at Ben Miller Movies. Check out my website, icecreamforfreaks.com. I'm writing a series on the films of 1992. Just went through Malcolm X, a couple other movies coming up. River Runs Through It, which I'd never seen before. If you're a big fly fishing fan, that's a good one. Early Brad Pitt, very young, raw Brad Pitt. But also, you follow my other writing on the Film Experience and Cinema Scholars. You can find me on other pods as I am the David Clues of podcasting. Jake, where can the people find you?
I'm a box.
I like it. Do you have
It's fine.
Do you have a neon red cross over your single bed in your room filled with junk? I mean, of all the little things in John Doe's apartment, and I'm like, oh, what is that red cross? Why is it red? Like, can't it just be just a cross? Like, it makes it that much creepier.
Yeah.
Make sure to follow the podcast on Twitter at Critic Common Pod. Please like, subscribe, rate, and review. I appreciate everybody viewing it and continuing to view it and listen to it. We will keep it going. Enjoy the show wherever you get your podcast. We will try to catch you next time. Thank you all very much for joining us.
What's the trick? What's the trick? taking my love stick. What's the trick?